All right, guys, here we go. Week 5. We're going to start our Monday off with that strict press. We're going to go 3 rounds of 5-3-1. So a round would be 5-3-1. And each set, we're going down in reps. So we got 5 reps, 3 reps, and then 1. The first round of 5-3-1, let's go at like a 7 out of 10. So it's not super heavy, kind of like a little bit of a primer, a warm-up round. Round 2, we can go a little heavier. So this should feel challenging as we do the 5-3-1. And then round 3 is at that most challenging kind of level. So that's where we're close to maybe a 1 rep max or a rep max for each of those. Now, remember, the weight should also go up from the 5s to the 3s and the 3s to the 1s. So if you start with 100 pounds to the 5, the 3s should be heavier. So let's say 105 and the 1 should be 110, for example. So keep that in mind as you're progressing. And again, if technique is something you're still working on, or maybe it's a mobility thing, take your time today and just make sure the movement feels good. You have the mobility, there's no pain before you even start worrying about adding more weight or anything like that. So that's a focus on the first half to build some upper body strength. And then our workout is going to be a strength stamina workout. So it's going to be a little bit of upper body, and we got more of an explosive power movement with the hang power clean. So how it goes, we got 3 hang power cleans and then 3 strict handstand push-ups, 6 and 6, 9 and 9, 12 and 12, 15, 15, and that's the last round. So as we're going up, we're really kind of testing the limits of our muscle groups for that strict handstand push-ups, and then the hang power cleans are going to feel tough, especially with that grip. So we might want to think of, I'd probably go into this of maybe doing sets of 3 or sets of 5 as I go to the heavier lifts. But when you get to the 12s and the 15s, you're probably doing that in a couple sets. Go heavy only if you can keep the technique and form there. So if you are not able to do that and you have to focus more on the positioning and the technique, if you're in that kind of category, don't worry so much about the weight. So really kind of, for example, take your time when you catch it in the hang position or in the hang power position. Make sure you're in the right position when you catch it and then stand it up. So take that extra time to build the confidence in the movement there before we worry about like trying to get that heavy stimulus out of this workout. So workout, you got 12 minutes to work through it. So it's a good start to the Monday. And then we're going to do a little bit of a contrast on Tuesday. So we got our skill work with the double unders. We're going to go every 90 seconds for 6 rounds as usual. So you guys should be kind of seeing your progression across those 5 weeks so far. If you're stuck, again, change a variable in there. Sometimes we kind of go into doing a skill where we're just going to just keep doing it until it shows up. We have to kind of be intentional with how we do it. So if you are practicing double unders for 60 seconds, focus on like moving one variable. So sometimes we go into double unders and we jump higher and we try to spin the rope faster than the previous attempt. That's going to really mix up what you should be actually focusing on. So try to keep one thing the same. So maybe the jump height stays the same, and then you change your rope speed. And then if you find that that works, stick to that. Try to see if that actually matches the tempo of your jump and the speed of the rope. Maybe you want to change the actual jump height, so more air time versus the actual speed of the rope. So it'll just depend, but try to see if you can manage one variable at a time. Also, arm position is going to matter too. We don't want to be using the shoulders or the elbows to spin the rope. We want to try to make it a lot from the wrist there. So focus on that. Focus on where the rope is positioned relative to your body. That's going to matter too. But all of this is to build those physical skills. We're trying to build coordination of the and timing there. So those are physical skills that we'll see in different movements. And this is the purpose of working on this movement. Again, maybe some of you don't necessarily want a double under, but this helps you build more rhythm and more coordination with your movements, which can help you with other movements too as well. So think of it as more of a physical ability if you're just coming into it for just the purposes of kind of getting cardio or movement in. It's going to help kind of transfer over into other movements. If you want a double under, really good movement, again, to build more of that cardiovascular endurance. As you start to do it in a workout, you're going to get a little bit more out of it compared to single skips. And again, if you guys have double unders, practice the 10 to 50 again with an intention of changing one little aspect of it. Let's get more efficient with how we skip. You may have double unders, but maybe how you jump or maybe how you hold the rope is not as efficient. So let's dig into that today for the skill work. And then our workout, 20 minutes. This is meant to be an endurance workout. So in the 20 minutes, we shouldn't be held back by strength or stamina. And what that means is like we shouldn't feel muscle fatigue in a certain area. We should feel more kind of central cardiovascular fatigue in this one. That's what's kind of slowing you down. So in the 20 minutes today, we got 15 air squats, 15 sit-ups, 15 Russian kettlebell swings, and 50 double unders. We want to just be moving at that through those movements at a fairly like fast rate. However, at a rate that we can sustain for 20 minutes. So someone's speed might look a little bit different than someone else. As long as you're sustaining in those 20 minutes and you can keep a level 7 out of 10 difficulty level and maybe creep up to 8, then you know you're doing this one correctly. If you kind of come out real fast in the first 5 minutes, you burn out, or sometimes even in the first 10 minutes, we can hold it for 10 minutes, but then the last half of the 10 minutes, we kind of break. That's not what we want to happen. So try to keep that pacing in mind. Always do that. It's a little self-check of how that feels for you. Does it feel like a 10 out of 10 at that pace you're going, or does it feel like a 5 and just adjust to be around that 7 level, or maybe a little higher around that 8? So that's Tuesday. More of the cardiovascular, more of the endurance work is what we're focusing on today. So it's a little bit less kind of CNS taxing. And again, we don't need to go at a super high intensity for this one. We just want to get the body moving, getting a good sweat on. Going into Wednesday, we're going to do a little bit more technical work. So our Wednesdays have been looking like working on the Olympic lifts, specifically the snatch. A lot of good physical traits that we're getting out of this. So we're getting coordination, we're getting power, strength, mobility. It's exposing different positions for us as well. And there's a lot going on there. We're trying to move a weight around our body. So it can get very technical, very maybe even overwhelming at first, but break it up. So for today, we're doing a high hang snatch for the first 5 rounds and a hang snatch for the next 5 rounds. Now, the goal of this is to, again, like I said, to work on skill and the technique here. Mobility is going to be a big factor for a lot of you guys. So let's break that down. Focus on a power position. I'd rather you focus on getting into the position, or at least learning how to get that bar up into the overhead position without worrying about getting into the squat. The squat, if you have it and you have that overhead squat, you feel comfortable getting into the bottom of it, that's going to be a different category on its own. And you can focus on that today and make all the snatches squats. Though if you're new to this, I would recommend just get comfortable with the power and maybe dabble with going into that power position and try to squat down, as long as positioning is there. So if you feel like the shoulders are super, super tight, back's tight, hips are tight going into it, don't force yourself through it, especially if we're doing it fast. That's going to add a risk of injury for ourselves. So let's focus on getting to the right progression for ourselves when we're doing the strength skill work. And then in our workout, we can let loose a little bit. We got 3 rounds, 2 minutes of burpee box jump over. So kind of more of a cardiovascular movement, but we got a little bit of power involved with jumping up onto the box. So it's going to expose a little bit of that. And then 1 minute off, and then 2 minutes of assault bike, 1 minute off. So basically the goal of these 3 rounds to really be at a high intensity. So we're at an 8.5 to 9.5 RPE. And maybe even that last round, we're at a 10. We're just emptying it out. So first 2 rounds, you can think of kind of around that 8 to 9 level. But then once we get to that last round, we should be near that kind of high 9s or even close to a 10 there. And the goal is to work on more of the high intensity endurance. This is where we work on anaerobic endurance. So we can't really sustain this for a really long period of time, but it allows us to output a lot in a short period of time. So that's going to be the focus for the workout today. And then as you can see, we're going to complement that and do an opposite kind of style of workout on Thursday. So kind of flushing it out a little bit and working more on long endurance work here. We got 20 rounds. Every 2 minutes, we're going to complete 15 cal row, for the guys, 12 for the ladies. Now, the goal of Thursday's workout is going to be more about endurance. So on Wednesday, we were high intensity. So it was at a pace that we can't really sustain. This should be a pace today that we can sustain, especially for 20 rounds. So 15/12 cal row is the recommendation for today, but I choose a calorie target that you can complete within a minute there. I'd like this to be basically kind of like a 1 minute on, 1 minute off. If near the end, let's say the last 5 rounds, you're closer to like 115 or maybe even 130, that's okay too as well. But if we come out on the first round and it takes 2 minutes to do 15 calories or 12 calories, then we should definitely scale because you won't last the 20 rounds there. I don't want you to be just rowing for 40 minutes straight. I want you to be having at least a 1-to-1 or very close to 1-to-1 ratio of rest. So you guys can work on your output, but also work on the endurance of your output. That's going to be the main intent of that day. So that's Thursday. Following that up with our strength work on Friday. We got our deadlifts 5-3-1. I would actually treat this very similar to Monday's strict press. So I'm actually going to copy over the same idea. So I want the first round to feel like a 7 out of 10. So it can be kind of like a warm-up round in a little bit of weight, but I still want it to feel like you're putting in work there. Round 2, that's going to feel challenging. Round 3 is the hardest round, okay? And maybe close to that 5 rep, 3 rep, 1 rep, whatever that is. But the goal of this 5-3-1, like I said, is to build strength. And the reason it's 5-3-1, for those that are curious, when we go from a 5 to a 3, we're bumping up the weight. So our nervous system is engaging a little bit more. We're going heavier and heavier and really challenging that battery or our central nervous system. And then when we go from the 1 to the 5 again on the following round, the 5s feel easier. We can kind of output a little bit more because the previous memory of our last set was at a really heavy weight. So our nervous system is kind of primed up for the 5s after that. So this is really good to help with building strength. That's why we want a 5-3-1 and not just keeping it the same reps all the way across. This is really to drive that or get the neural drive out of it. And that's why we're doing it in that rep scheme. After that, our workout, this one's a good one. We got deadlifts, farmer's carries, wall walks. So a lot of upper body, posterior chain. This is going to really kind of hit strength and stamina. So when we go into this, we got 3 rounds for time, 10 minutes. So it's tight. 25 dual kettlebell deadlifts, 32-24, 10 25-foot farmer's carries, and then 5 wall walks. So we're going to have to put the pedal to the metal in this one. 10 minutes is not a lot of time to push through. So you're looking at roughly kind of 3.5 minutes per round, I would say. Actually looking at this, I might bump it up a little bit more. I'll be generous. I'm going to put 12 minutes there, make it a little bit more doable. So in this 3 rounds here, 4 minutes a round. If you don't finish, that's okay. Especially if you get 2 rounds done and you're in that 3rd round there, totally okay. Because we're really challenging stamina here. We got strength and stamina. It's going to really fatigue forearms today with that kettlebell deadlift to the farmer's carry because we're just hanging on to the kettlebells there and they're pretty heavy. And then the wall walks, we got that push. So we got a lot of pull and push, grip work. Our upper body is going to be taxed in this one. So a lot of upper body strength and stamina is going to be the stimulus of today. So this one will be a good one. And then following up into our Saturday or our weekend workouts, these are always meant to be more kind of fun, longer workouts, 5 rounds for reps. These are intervals that we want to be able to repeat and work on our endurance. We got 3 minutes on, 250 row, 250 meter row, 15 wall balls, max burpee pull-ups to a 6-inch target, and then 3 minutes off. So the idea is like, let's see if we can get the same number of burpee pull-ups every round. 1 minute on the row, 15 wall balls should take you about 30-45 seconds if you go unbroken. And then the burpee pull-ups have about 45 seconds to a minute to do those. And we're going into a 3-minute rest. if you score, let's say 5 reps, try to hit 5 reps every round. And then the last round, if you have it in you, try to get a little bit more than the 5 that you did in the previous 4 rounds. And I'll do a little adjustment on the row here. So 250 meters for the guys and 200 for the ladies there. Let's go into Sunday to finish off the week. This one's going to be kind of like a fun powerlifting style kind of workout. We got AMRAP 12 bench press, 12 cal row, 12 air squats, 6-minute rest. AMRAP 12 again, 12 deadlifts, 12 cal bike, 12 horizontal rim rows. So we're going to work on some stamina and some endurance in this one. This is all done with a partner, so you can do it in teams of 2. And find weights, or if you need to have a couple weights out, you can, that you guys can do and move through those 12 in about 2 sets or less. Okay, maybe 8 and 4 or 6 and 6. Maybe in the last couple rounds, it might do it in smaller sets, so like maybe 4s. But if you're doing only a couple, like 1 or 2 reps, it's probably a little too heavy. So just make sure it's more on the endurance end than it is in the strength end for today's workout. So hopefully that was exciting, getting a little overview of what to expect for the week. And we will see you guys at the gym this week.